So today we started with the causes of causes of problems in supply and demand. I think supply and demand problem related to economic development. Yes, related to economic development. So first are the economic factors in that. What are the economic factors that we see? That low rate of capital formation, that is less accumulation of investment for the development in the country, then high inequalities socially and financially in the country, then we see uh, high capital output ratio. हाँ मम्मी, पानी का पापा को बोलूं, पापा को बोलूं लाने को. हाँ है, बोला यू. अरे अभी उनकी आवाज आई मुझे. नहीं है? है ना, तो बोलना, आवाज ले. अरे अब आवाज तो लगा.
पापा पापा
ऊपर आ रहे हैं. हाँ तो फिर तो बढ़िया ही है. So then is high capital output ratio. It tells us about how much efficient we are with our investments, and so it is division of investment out of from the output. So it tells us the efficiency that we have in making our investment and output. Then we have low global participation also, which means that very less foreign investment are happening in India, or people that are investing in India as they don't see much promise in India. Beyond that, we also see demographic factors, which are our size of population is very large, and the utilization of resources in proportion of that is very low. Then literacy rate, level of skilling and efficiency. Third is political factors, which is political instability that happens in our country, corruption that happens, then lack of good governance, poor leadership by the leaders, lack of transparency in the process or in the policies. Next is socio-cultural factors, which is lack of entrepreneurship mindset in the society, in our culture also. Leaving Sindhis and Gujaratis, they have entrepreneurship mindset, but they are very less, a short population in the country. गेट सही से उड़काना, गेट सही से उड़काना. मम्मी बात कर रही ना, बात नहीं है. हाँ तो ले आओ ना. मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है, मेरे 500 रुपये ऊपर. 500 करोड़ 600 करना, 500. Okay, sorry for continued interruptions, but let us continue. So, cultural factors were lack of entrepreneurship, lack of participation of women and social inequalities also comes in here, regional inequalities and so on. Then we see some concepts like capital formation. What is capital formation? It is a linkage between the entities like bank and companies, or you can say, no, I गलत है मेरे. Oh, capital formation is the addition of fixed assets in a financial year, like infrastructure, buildings, and machines. These are the capital formation. And capital formation in a country comes from savings of life of the household, savings of the household. Capital can be two types. One is human capital and other is physical capital. So physical capital, when we say physical, ये उल्टा लगती है 25 अच्छा नहीं ठीक है. So physical capital is long term and short term tangible assets, long term and short term tangible and intangible assets. Intangible assets, things like machine inventories come along, and in intangible assets, things like things like software comes here. Then in human capital, it is simply the people who have intangible qualities like skill, knowledge, efficiency they provide in their work, and all that. Also, it can be improved. That is why in an country it is said to improve health, education, and skilling and R&D, research and development, as it will make the human capital grow, and human capital will grow physical capital, and they will both work together, and then we see capital formation a lot, and then capital formation will help in economic development. Second is capital output ratio. As I talked earlier, I will not explain it again. Then we have incremental capital output ratio, which only tells us about refers to the change in capital that is required to produce the additional output that we have. So it is same formula but with a little change. Like its formula is change in capital divided by change in output. That is that it is that it is no, that is it. Okay. Then we see Harrod-Domar model, which tells us that the growth is directly proportional to the savings in the household and inversely proportional to the capital output ratio. So if savings increase, then the growth will be incremental, and if the capital output ratio is detrimenting, then also the growth will be facing some challenges. Inclusive growth. What is inclusive growth? Inclusive means accepting everything, or being accepting to everyone. So what is inclusive growth means? If we see the definition of OECD, which is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, then it says that inclusive growth as the economic growth that is distributed fairly across the group of people, fairly across the society, and creates opportunities for all. If we see the definition of UNDP, which is United Nations Development Program, it defines inclusive growth as the process and outcome where all people from all groups have participated in growth and have benefited equally or equitably from it. So in simple, it is just the participation from all the groups and benefit to the all the groups equitably or trying to be equitable. So it is distribution of resources in a very equitable manner. What if we don't have inclusive growth? What will happen then? If we don't have inclusive growth, then we see that inequality will rise, and if inequality happens with the growth, then we see that social unrest will happen, that people who are on the lower strata due to that will be very unhappy with the upper strata people, and there can be some conflicts and riots. Then unemployment will be on rise, then crime, child labor, these things will be on rise. Other element that inclusive growth can bring, or the factors that, or not factors, but what does inclusive growth can bring into a society. It can lower the poverty, it can it can uh, it can do employment generation, it can provide stability to the society. Yeah, it ensures the fair distribution of resources. It ensures agriculture development, educational development, infrastructural development, industrial development. It can bring good governance with social development. But all these developments should be in a sustained way, that we don't destroy the destroy our surroundings in the right now, or maybe exploit it right now because we can, and then the future generation will have nothing. So the next topic is sustained development or sustainable development. It was the idea introduced in Bertland report, uh, and titled as our bright future, our common future, sorry, in 1987. And this discusses, uh, or this tells us how we should fulfill the need of the present while taking care or keeping in mind that future future generations should also be able to fulfill their needs and their future generation too. So it should be in sustainable manner. I have to write more about it, so this page is empty. We'll do little more research on SDGs. What are the challenges that we see in for the inclusive growth in India? It can be corruption, it can be mm, high population with underutilized resources that we have, and jobless economic growth, unsuitable educational skilling system, widespread poverty, corrupt and inefficient administration, multidimensional inequalities. And what are the measures to solve all that? It is just the opposite, which is population control, employment focus, education and skilling focus. Or education should be focused on skilling and suitable for the skilling system. Then labor intensive, ruler centric, decentralized production, poverty reduction, good governance, financial inclusion. So just the opposite of the challenges. Then after inclusive growth, we have to also make people from the marginalized communities, or people who belong to them, inclusive of the financial services, and that is known as financial inclusion. And so what is finance is the most important resource in economic, for any economic activity. It is capital that is required. So for finance, we see one scheme in 2014 that is launched, which is PM Jan Dhan Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which provide whose national mission was financial inclusion, and it had 3 pointers or 5 pointers. पढ़ो अपना क्या कर रहे हो? 5 pointers, like first, universal access to banking based on the on 6 pillars. Universal access to banking services, saving accounts with overdraft policy, financial literacy, pallet guarantee fund, insurance and pension, all these to the people who are marginalized. Then we see the reforms that happened in India in economy, and how the planning went throughout the time. So we see from the ancient to medieval to modern era. In ancient era, we first see a good stable economy is was Hindu Saraswati civilization or Harappan civilization, as we call it, because we see a proper entrepreneurship or trading based society there, and they were they were flourishing and had a very good system at that time. Then uh, after them we see Ashokan period, in which, sorry if it was Ashokan or not, I am little unsure about it. Sorry, modern period in which we get the first book on economy by Acharya Chanakya, which is Arthashastra, and it was after them came Guptas, whose age was also called golden age, but in history we see how it was not a golden age. It can be called good good era for literary works, but not a golden age. But if here we are in economy, we will see it is a golden age. And in just economic, if we see just the economic aspect, so it was a golden age. Then after them Gupta came Harshvardhan, who was also very it was also very prosperous in his time. So it was good. But when British came and ruled India, colonial rule, they destroyed Indian economy and destroyed mostly everything that they saw for their own benefit. And an economist, according to an economist, Agnes Madison India, who says that India was world's biggest economy in 1st century AD to 17th century AD, as we were producing 30% of the GDP to the whole world and 25% share of the global trade we had. But colonial rule detrimented it to 1.5%. Then we gained our independence in 1947, and we were in you can say uh, turmoil to choose what type of economy, as we were seeing at that time that America and other capitalist country were having great depression at that time. So capitalism couldn't be the answer at that time for us. And then we saw that socialism was going good in Russia, or you can say USSR, and we try to uh, recreate that in India, as also because we had a lot of poverty at that time, lot of unemployment, lot of droughts and floods in our country, because Britishers Britishers sucked out all the wealth, all the facilities from India. कहाँ जा रहे हो?
पर कमरे से कुछ मेरे को मतलब कमरे से नहीं बैग
तो ला फिर. Then we see some recommendations from like Sir M. Vishwesvaraya in 1934, who proposed 10-year model on his book. Then in 1944 we also see Bombay Plan was proposed by 8 leading industrialists to to double the per capita income of India in 15 years, And then we see Shri S.N. Agrawal presenting Gandhian plan, which focus on agriculture and rural sector and bring decentralization of economic activities. And other proposals were from Shri J.P. Narayan called Sarvodaya Plan. It was inspired by the idea of M.K. Gandhi and Acharya Vinoba Bhave. But all these were not taken into action. In 1950, we see that Planning Commission was established and it had the job to plan for India the 5-year plan that was being followed in USSR. So India also adopted it as a socialist country, and we had our first 5-year plan in 1951 and 1956. And in this plan we mainly focus on reducing poverty, bringing reforms in agricultural, or trying to increase the agricultural production, and making irrigation facilities easier, and on power generation. At this time we followed the Harad-Domar model. On the second phase, which is second 5-year plan, or not second phase, sorry, second plan, from 1956 to 61, we again aimed to make India self-reliant and not to depend on anyone, to generate our economy on our own by rapid industrial development. But it was not working, as everything was nationalized and there were very minimal support and role of the private sector, as we were socialist at that time. But problems like foreign exchange and shortage of industrial products were seen at this time. And at this time we were following the Mahalanobis model. We also tried to increase our industrial output, from like building steel plants in Bihar, Raurkela, Durgapur, etc. After that we had third plan in 1961 to 1966. Again our aim was to we see that in this period we had a one-sided war in 1962 with China and 1965 with Pakistan, and these two things brought help to India, not like in the military terms, but in economic terms, as the war requires high capital or high economic burden, and it destroyed India's economic setup at that time, and it created high inflation, drought, and food shortage. Then we see a good plan that was gave by Dr. Gadgil. Also, this plan was called as Gadgil Yajna. It was followed, but there was a loss of leadership in 1966, and we see that there was a 3-year period then where we didn't have any plan, and it was called as 3-year planned holiday. And we also see that in this period Green Revolution came to India, which was very good at that time, but now it has become a nightmare due to some decisions by people. हाँ मम्मी, पापा थोड़ी है ये. वो मेरे हिसाब से कुछ और भी लेने चले गए मेरे से 600 रुपए लेके. मेरे से 600 लेंगे, कह रहे पैसे नहीं अकाउंट में. कहे तो मैं ना थोड़ी कर सकता हूँ, उन्हीं के पैसे मेरे पास. क्या पूरा बैग पिला रहे थे? खाएगा बैग को? क्या करेगा बैग को पूरे? Hmm. Also, we did devaluation of Indian currency at this time in 1966 to promote export, but it had some other problems. But at that time, we wanted to promote export, so we did that. Then came fourth plan from 1969 to 1974. In this time, we were facing high unemployment, large scale poverty, and in 1971 we see that high influx of refugees were coming from Bangladesh, so it put economic toll on India. And then we also see Gulf War happened in 1973, which gave a global oil shock, again increasing prices on everything. So these things created high inflation in the country, and at this time government tried to control that and introduce family planning programs to also control the growth of population, but it was not implemented well, and we see a 3.3% economic actual growth in India at that time, and the target was 5.7%. Then fifth plan came in 1974 to 79. 1974 to 79, and at this time again high inflation, the prices of food and energy were skyrocketing. Then a plan by Shri DP Dhar was proposed, in which the objectives were to reduce poverty and increase the self-reliance on food and defense products. But due to the unstable environment after 1974, and we see the change of government, the plan was aborted and not put into clear action. Then we see the sixth 5-year plan introduced in 1982-85, in which again our goal was to remove the poverty and bring in good technology and modernization, do population control, employment generation, but nothing major happened. Yes, we see that 6 private banks were nationalized at that time.
भैया, जब लाइटनिंग किसी कंडक्टर को स्ट्राइक करती है तो कंडक्टर कितना वो ले सकता है?
डिपेंड करता है ना, मटेरियल पे डिपेंड करता है, इंटेंसिटी ऑफ लाइट पे भी डिपेंड करता है, डिपेंड ये भी करता है कि वो ग्राउंड से जुड़ा था कि नहीं, कि वो